Hi, everybody. Welcome to A Day in the Life, where we introduce you to the companies and individuals who bring the magic to life. I'm Kelly Bailey.
And I'm Kathy Dixon. And today we're talking to two wonderful guests from Worldbuildr. We're speaking to Michael and Evan.
Good morning.
Good
Hello.
morning.
Hey,
Hi, guys. Welcome to A Day in the Life.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
You know, I woke up, fell out of bed, dragged a comb across my head, and here I am.
Love that song. I feel like I've heard it many times. So, I think y'all have like an awesome sizzle reel for us to watch. Can we start with that?
Yeah, let's start with that.
Okay.
We talk about our software and our product a lot. Let's actually show it.
Like, oh, Dead Skull. I love us, Declan. Oh,
shout out to Dead Skull. Yeah, let's take a look.
Who gave my life to this place? I wanna breathe in the ocean, but I find my feet stuck in the sand. I wanna grow gray and never feel this young again. I'm from the land without age, where the faces don't change. I'm from the land without age, where the faces don't change. I'm from the land without age, where the faces don't change. What if I never get on off this line? When are these kids going home to their mother? What if I never get on? Never releasing my soul. What if I never get on?
Woo.
Y'all are not allowed to be that cool.
So that's a wrap. That's the show. Yeah, so let's talk.
Yeah, let's start from the beginning, and we're gonna have to take this like piece by piece here, right?
Sure.
So, Michael, you kind of transitioned into tech, isn't that correct?
It's true. Yes, I am post-transition, and I guess I call myself a tech person now. I started as a creative writer, and did that for about 5 years, and then decided to I don't know. I guess I just saw the writing on the wall with all this interactive stuff, and video games gaining in popularity, and decided to go back to grad school to learn all that stuff and learn how to code, and hopefully bring that information back to the themed entertainment industry. And thankfully, that's where I met Evan, who was a classmate of mine, who had similar, but not exactly the same, but similar interests. And that's where we connected and realized we complemented each other very well, and we've been working together ever since.
That fateful day in grad school.
Fateful
Almost
3 years.
Almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So, Evan, I know, for one, I know that like grad school kind of helps frame thoughts that are already kind of there and introduce new problems to be solved, based on personal experience. But you have a thesis project that I've heard some about, and I would like if you're able to share it.
I can talk a little bit about it. Yeah, and certainly, like Libby was saying, we met in grad school. I kind of ended up, unlike him, I was just an undergrad and didn't know where I was going to go, and was like, I don't really like all the computer science knowledge I have, where it will put me. So let's pursue more game design and more design-centric thoughts and processes and stuff like that. And that's how I found USC, where I ended up meeting Libby. And, I was always like, oh yeah, Imagineering sounds amazing, but I'm just going to make video games and stuff like that. And I show up here and Libby's like, oh yeah, I've worked for all these people and these are my rides and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, let's talk. And the funny thing is that the more we, talked and worked together and all kinds of things like that, it seemed more and more like believable that I could totally find a place in this. And eventually my thesis project basically became making BattleTech sort of my own makeshift thing. And I wanted to explore a lot of stuff like second screen as a interactive. It's impossible to see from this photo, but there's a little tablet in there that interacts with the game. There's also some physical components like wires that you literally plug and unplug to change certain things inside the game that actually have real effects. And I was trying to cross that physical to video game stuff, which we're starting to see a lot more of, like with Millennium Falcon or Smuggler's Run and stuff like that.
Yeah, actually, if you can pull up that photo again, that's a photo of our thesis show at the end of 3 years, and Evan built that. Like, our assignment was to do something digital, something like a game using real-time media. And Evan built that cabinet and really did recreate sort of like a custom BattleTech console. And this connectivity between the digital world and the physical world, I think, is what brought us together.
Definitely. And it's fun. I don't know if you have something to talk about your thesis, but eventually we actually ended up being sat next to each other at the thesis show too. And it was perfect because people would go from Libby's project, which was taking a theme park thing, and a physical thing and making it, into this digital. I'll let Libby describe his actual thesis and how he went about it. And whereas I went from and sort of made it a video game, whereas I made a video game and tried to turn it sort of into a ride, and we were both kind of like, oh yeah, this might work.
And this would have been around May 2015. So nobody was talking about the metaverse or any of this stuff, virtual worlds. We were kind of on the cutting edge at the time, which is a weird thing. I'm sure for anybody who's been to grad school, you learn all this, state of the art stuff and everything that's coming. and then you graduate and go into the real world, and like nobody knows what you're talking about.
So much exploration of libraries not quite finished or products not quite there. We ended up getting the what was it, the Oculus headset, the demo versions. We received a bunch of those, and that
the first dev kits.
Awesome,
we had
and created
first Oculus dev kits.
Challenges.
So this kind of set you both up to kind of landslide into themed entertainment, obviously. And can you kind of like talk about the start of Worldbuildr and like a bit of what you guys do in terms of capabilities and what your roles are within the group, like within the company?
So we did sort of landslide into it. That's a good word. So I started Worldbuildr probably around 2012, about 10 years ago. But really, it was just a consultancy for myself. It was a formality to do consulting and freelancing work. Really, just for tax classification purposes. But then during grad school, so Evan mentioned my thesis, and my thesis was basically a digital dark ride. And I wrote my own storyline and cast the voice actors, and I wanted to have something original to show that wasn't under NDA, so that we could really say, hey, here's what I do. Here's what these new technology tools can do for our industry. And it was just sort of an exercise. And along the way, I kind of realized, hey, this is more than just a fun thing to do, but it's actually a really valuable pre-visualization tool for building the real thing. And it's such a multidisciplinary medium that we have. You have all these moving parts, and they're all moving separately from each other during design and development. There's a lot of room for error. So, if we're able to do a collaborative, visual piece of software that allows everybody to sort of push their assets into a shared simulation during development, it just makes a ton of sense. And so, so that was a big thing for us. And then, kind of the second big aha moment was, well, maybe it can go beyond pre-visualization and simulation. And, since these game engines like Unity and Unreal are actually capable of sending signals out to the real world, we actually learned in school controlling things like little servos and little LED lights through Arduino breadboards and things like that. But, once we realized that these game engines can send signals to the real world, we realized, well, maybe the simulation can then become the show controller. And once you have everything figured out in the simulation, that software can then actually transition into being the operating system and control the real world thing that you built. So those two sort of epiphanies, I think, really set us on our way in terms of the type of product that we're trying to build, and the type of need that we're trying to serve.
Holy crap. Yep. Like, I feel like every time, well, the few times I've been able to like actually like corner you, Michael, and talk, I feel weird also calling you Michael, because Evan keeps calling you Libby, and I feel like I'm not there yet. I've reached some sort of inner sanctum to be able to hear you be called Libby. I'm just throwing that out there.
Feel
Very
free.
excited right now.
Your inner circle.
What's happening? I'm so sorry. So are there some specific projects that you have worked on that have just been like turning points in like making that transition from being ideation to like, this is what we do now?
Yeah, well, so the big project that really kind of galvanized us as a company, and helped transition from me being just a individual freelancer to really being a company with a product, was in 2018. I was working for Thinkwell, and I got sent to Abu Dhabi for the final months of development of Warner Brothers World, and specifically their e-ticket ride, the Batman Night Flight attraction, which is it's a Kuka Arm based attraction, a lot like Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey, very similar. And oh yeah, perfect. And I got sent out there, and in the exact words of Thinkwell's CFO Francois, he said I needed to bring a backup in case something happens to me, and so I called Evan, and that was really the start of Worldbuildr as a company. And Evan came out to Abu Dhabi, and we kind of saved the day over there. So if you could pull those photos up again, those are just a couple photos of the attraction. And of course, Warner Brothers World is an incredible park. It's the world's largest indoor theme park. Yeah, so there's the Bat Cave, and you approach the load station, and you see these amazing vehicles. And it's actually not like Harry Potter in terms of the load station. Harry Potter is a continuous load. And here, this is a back view of the load station, where you have opportunistic loading, where whichever vehicle is ready to dispatch, it'll dispatch. And when it comes back around to the end, whichever load bay is open, it'll go there, which is pretty cool. And but these are such advanced vehicles and such an advanced ride. You can see in this picture here, you have the Kuka Arm, of course, but also projection screens and media domes and theatrical lighting and show action equipment. There are a lot of moving parts, literally. And, as with any production, it's really hard to integrate all these things. So here's a short piece of footage. Actually, that's a still. We can skip that one. The video must not have translated. But this is, so we ended up using our software, really the same software that I had started in grad school, to figure out all the timing and media cues and audio cues and the sequencing of what happens when. And that's the hardest thing to figure out. So there is the final attraction, and it's really a world-class attraction. And we kind of had to develop a pipeline on the fly because they were so late in production. But I really couldn't have done that without Evan. And I think going through that process, realizing what some of the potential issues are during production, and how we're able to troubleshoot some of them with this new technology, I think that was when the two of us realized, like, hey, I think there's a product here and a real business. So that was about 3 to 4 years ago, and it's been onwards and upwards ever since then.
Do you remember the message you sent me asking me about this? It was about 1 a.m. in the morning. I was at a party, and you sent me a message on Facebook saying, "How do you feel about international travel?" And I'm like, maybe. And that's how I ended up there for 3 months with you.
How do you feel now about international travel?
Well, right now, less so, but normally still fun, still down.
Yeah. No, but that was a once in a lifetime experience. Our office was literally the Batcave. Like, we would walk to the Batcave every day and sit in the Batcave every day, and it was pretty surreal. That was pretty great. Oh yeah, and we have some comments here from Ed Skull, who we hung out with at IAPA, and who works at Moment Factory, and is very simpatico in terms of using these new technology tools to create multimedia experiences. And I think more and more people are kind of seeing the light and really understanding the power of these game engines and of these new tools like VR and AR. Anyway, I'm sorry. You had
Oh,
another
no,
question.
it's all great. I know you have another project to share with us, right?
We do. We have one more. I'll talk through this one really quickly, and this this kind of talks about some of our process. So if you want to pull up the first slide there. Yeah, so this is a project called Phantom Bridge, which was installed on at least one Princess cruise ship, and is on board now. And basically, it's, yeah, let's pause here for just a second. What we did was basically, actually go back one slide if you don't mind. Yeah, so this was our assignment. We got this concept artwork from our client. It was a really cool idea for a not really an escape room, more sort of like an interactive story room. A board. It's kind of meta because it's like the deck of a ship inside of a cruise ship as an activity. But all of the screens that you're seeing in this concept were real time. So you know, if you steer the wheel at the front of the ship, that those real-time screens would show that your ship is turning. You can see there's a portrait of a captain on the wall there. Sometimes he would come alive and give you hints if you got stuck. All of these touch screens and those drawers that the kids are exploring, those are all real-time touch screens as well. And so we got hired to kind of make this happen from a technological standpoint. And the strategy that we used was to create a digital twin, which is a term that you'll probably be hearing more and more. So let's go to the next slide here. And this is our, you know, it's not going to win any visual awards, but that's not the point. The guests never saw this. This was a design tool. Basically, we just imported our client's SketchUp model. They provided us with the assets. They gave us their SketchUp model, and we basically used our system to create all of the media. So, for example, that captain that you're seeing there in the portrait, you know, that's a flat surface. That's a screen in the real ship. But in this digital twin, what's actually happening, and this is a little abstract to understand, so bear with me, but in the digital scene, behind that wall is a full-bodied captain. The whole captain figure is there, dimensional, 3D, arms and legs and everything. And when the captain talks, he's behind that wall talking and animating. But we have a camera, a virtual camera in the scene that's pointed at the captain and then rendering everything that it captures onto that flat plane in the picture frame. So we're literally flattening the media. We're creating the media behind the wall, behind that digital wall, flattening it, and then playing it back on that flat screen. And the same thing is true of those windows in the front when we steer the ship. In the digital scene, you look out there and there's open water. And there's really dimensional water in the digital scene. But we're pointing a virtual camera at that water and then projecting what that camera is capturing onto flat planes within the digital scene. So we're really generating and warping the media in real time within this digital twin. And so then, once we've done that, instead of sending what those digital cameras are capturing to these textures within our scene, we can actually send them out to the real world. So let's advance to the next slide. And so now what you're seeing here is our client. We spoke with them, and we knew we would have limited time to install actually aboard the cruise ship. And so we suggested let's do a mock-up in one of your conference rooms. So this is one of their conference rooms, and what you're seeing here is the exact same thing that you saw on the previous slide, except we're taking that digital twin and sending the output of those virtual cameras to real displays in this real mock-up. So we're capturing the footage using cameras, virtual cameras in the scene, and then rendering what those virtual cameras are capturing to these displays. But because we built it in a digital twin, the scale is perfect and everything aligns. Then, of course, they added some, vinyl show set, just basic flats in the conference room. We're still in our conference room now. There's another one of our team members, Mara Ferrari, who just finished working on Galactic Star Cruiser. We're all very proud of them. And Evan and Mar there. And Garrett, another one of our team members. Here we are we're still in this conference room mock-up, but Evan is there in the lower left corner running the digital twin off of a laptop and generating all of this media in the enclosed area. And this is where we were able to fix bugs and troubleshoot. And you can see we didn't even have a steering wheel yet. We were just using a Xbox control pad just to sort of navigate, and this was all sort of part of the process. And then if you advance to the next scene, so this is the final. This is now all of a sudden we're on board the ship.
Is that the captain?
It's hard to tell. And but that's because we really kind of figured everything out beforehand within the digital twin, and then it's on board running on Worldbuildr show control software. The pre-visualization, the digital twin, then became the show controller. So yeah, this opened very shortly before the pandemic started, and then the ships stopped sailing for a long period of time. But this was really a great field test of our product, and it worked, and we're pretty happy with the results. And actually, I should say, I was not able to board the ship for the final installation. I had other commitments, but Evan really led the install team aboard the ship, and they only had a matter of days to do it. Just because that's the time that we had. But because we did all of that pre-production, we were able to make it happen pretty easily. Evan, anything you want to add about that process aboard the ship?
No, it was a wild time. It was it was great. It was kind of crazy. Anyone who does coding and work will know what, here's a particular challenge that you might face on, on the ground is the room had no internet. So any sort of development we kind of had to do in terms of computers, programming, you do all your research outside and then have to take it in and hopefully get it all connected. Yeah. So stuff like that.
I forgot about that. The room was it was like lead or steel or something.
It was just insulated with something, I don't know, Faraday cage, whatever.
Good times.
Okay. Was the captain seriously there, like, playing with it?
Oh, we had a lot of people. We had I believe the captain came by but didn't play it. I'm trying to remember that. That I think was one of not the captain, but one of the higher ups. I know we had the cruise director came by and did some stuff. We had head of engineering and everyone just kind of come by. We had a few guests to test. We had performers who were going to be who were employees of the cruise line who wanted to try it out and all kinds of things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, I would hope the captain was steering the actual ship.
I mean,
yeah, walks up to the steering wheel and it's like, this is just like the real thing. It'll make you a little bit nervous.
So coming out of that project, so we have software that really has two functions to it. And at the time that we did that project a couple years ago, only one of the two functions was really complete. And those two functions are playback and programming. And at the time, we really only had playback working, meaning that our client had to essentially figure out like what the show was going to be and the sequencing and the timing, and kind of gave us basically an Excel spreadsheet of the cues. After 2 seconds, we'll play this sound effect. After 4 seconds, we'll play this lighting cue, that sort of thing. And then Evan and I and our team would have to manually input that data as a starting point. And then we'd iterate, we'd play it back in that conference room mock-up and say, oh, this cue's too early, this cue's too late. And that's all part of the process. What was missing at the time was the ability for our client themselves to make the changes. They had to communicate the changes to us, and then we would create a new version and then push the new version to the attraction. But what we've done now, and this was really kind of my pandemic project, was to and this is the thing that really separates us, I think, from everybody else, is that we've created a UI that kind of lays on top of everything, that allows the user to create new show sequences for the same space. So, based on our game design education, we actually looked at things like Minecraft and Super Mario Maker and some of these building
Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Roller Coaster Tycoon, of course. But our goal is to have a piece of software where our client, our user, can pull up an iPad when they're within their own environment, quickly drag and drop an intuitive new show sequence, and then just push that sequence and have it play back in the environment. Because, going back, thank you, Bonnie. I appreciate that. Going back to our experience on Batman, did things the traditional way. They didn't do anything wrong, but the traditional way of doing things is having on site a long table with a bunch of different experts with their own proprietary software, programming their own individual slice, and some creative person on site directing all of this. But these technicians are all very skilled at coding and their own, software specialization. But that's very expensive. It's not very accessible. So we really believe if you have one tool that allows the creative person to just do that, instead of having to interface with all these engineers, and the engineers code and they don't really, they're not creative, so there's always a disconnect. It's just much easier and much more streamlined if the creative person just designs the show and just does it. And the opportunity here, I think, is to really democratize the Disney quality show, and have these tools be accessible for small project teams, immersive theater installations, escape rooms, even mom and pop restaurants who just want to do like a little birthday show when it's someone's birthday. That's the big idea. And so we've just recently hit this milestone of this authoring system. So we're going to be sending out a free demo pretty soon if you're on our mailing list. If not, please sign up, worldbuildr.com, and that'll be coming out soon. And you can really kind of play around with it and see the potential. And the idea is that, there's no learning curve. Evan and I spent 3 years learning Unity. I still only know a small fraction of it. It's such a deep project or deep software. But the idea, Evan actually probably already knew Unity coming into grad school. But
that goes on a decade. About
a decade. Okay, there you go. But the point of our software is that our users don't have to do that. They just pick it up and they know what they want to see, and then they can just do it because they understand the interface and there's no coding. So that's
awesome.
Oh, and then the one other thing,
and it really pulled from it is it does pull from like user experience and what we expect our. I mean, I always mix up and say players, but you know, our the people using the stuff is pardon me. We're using, you know, UI that you would try and convey things very clearly with, whereas, you know, anyone who works in Maya or Photoshop or Unity or any coding thing, you can look at that and you have absolutely no definition of what any of the buttons do unless you've, you know, what's the teapot button? Well, it's a teapot or something. I don't know. And what we really want to approach is making it so that, you know, it's a big part that every discipline gets to use our software. And so we don't want it to be, you know, a language for one group, just the designers, just the programmers, just the lighting, just the scenic, any of that. We just want it, we need to make it as easy and far reaching, almost maybe not so as easy as a Roller Coaster Tycoon, but you know, somewhere around between what designers and what programmers need is where we want to find a great middle ground and try and bring this to even more life.
Yeah, and the phrase that we're using is that we really want to be like the prosumer version of Roblox. Roblox is a collaborative experience design platform. I mean, kids get together online and they build little games and experiences for their friends to play with an intuitive user interface. We want to be that, but for, you know, adult armchair Imagineers and professionals within the industry. And that's just the way things are going. One of the most powerful stories that I've heard recently is, you know, this isn't anything momentous or special, but kids these days in school, like, it's been a while since I've been in school, but now kids in school, they're not taking notes anymore, like either on a computer or pencil and paper. They're not all sitting in class taking notes. They're opening a Google Doc and they're all taking notes together to create like one awesome source of notes for everyone in the class, which is so smart when you think about it. So they all have the same notes. They're really good.
So mad.
And it's that same principle. Kids are doing that now. So when they graduate into the workforce, they're going to want to collaborate in the same document. And that's really what our software is. It enables remote virtual collaboration in a 3D space in the same way. So I think as more and more of the youth of our industry graduates into the workforce, this is going to be more commonplace, and it's just going to be the way to do things.
Ah, yes, the youth.
The youth.
I'm so sorry because I was fully expecting somebody to go into the whole Utes thing. I just well aged myself. So when y'all, gosh, when y'all are like, okay, we have X project or something, I don't even, for one, I can't even begin to understand how y'all do what you do because my brain doesn't work that way.
Me
However, you're like, nope.
I don't know how you do what you do, Kelly, which is being so charming and a wonderful host of the show.
Thank you. I do it because Kathy makes me a better woman.
There you go.
Positioning for a second episode, Libby.
Yeah.
Y'all are welcome all the time. Like 100% would have you back. Sorry, I just need to throw that out there. So if someone, say, we're into like cool tech stuff and gaming and creative processes, how might they, at this stage in our world, get into the industry? Like if they were just sitting at home, like doing cool stuff.
Evan, do you want to take that one?
I mean, yeah, certainly. Well, it's such a weird, difficult thing because every single person you talk about in the themed entertainment industry or the video game industry, in fact, most of entertainment industry in general, everyone says, "Oh, I got lucky," or "I knew someone who knew someone," and stuff like that. And the reason those stories happen so much is people like working with people they like working with, and all those connections and sort of things. But what's really important is having your skills at a point when the opportunity presents itself. That's the luck is, your skills are here and you're constantly building them, or you should be. And not even just skills, sending things to festivals or getting noticed or releasing, a mobile project or just something small that gets you just that much more. And as you do that, eventually you'll find the bar of your opportunities, which gets lower as you find more and more connections and more friends until you find that you'll be lucky too. What I would say to someone, literally sitting in their chair right now, and yeah, I like that, would be, that's a really tough thing. I mean, obviously, apply, work on your resume, work on, your small projects, things that impress you. I mean, one of our employees that, Garrett, that, got us to notice, well, got a lot of people actually to notice him, not just us, was he built all of Disney World in Minecraft or something like that. And he was known for that among the community. And that was even just something where he could be like, listen, for us, we heard that and we're like, this guy is so crazy. What do you call yourselves, Libby? Foamers? Something like
Foamers.
That about themed entertainment, but understands where the building aspect has to be and how it's a digital age and these kinds of things are coming up. And that was the perfect thing for him. And, his opportunity was, I think it was a job fair, right?
It was a TEA job fair, yeah.
Yeah, TEA job fair that he was a next gen and he went to TE job fairs and stuff like that. And that's where he met Michael while he was still building up his knowledge in Unity at the time and stuff like that. He was also in school, so that helps a lot because you get more time it doesn't feel like it, but more time to work on personal projects in a way. I'm sorry to anyone who has homework. It's a nightmare. And you won't have it always, but you'll have your homework will be building upon your own skills and working on the next thing that'll get you there.
And school is great. School is great because you can fail without getting fired. Like you can really, experiment and improve your skill. And that's like what it's all about. You're not as safe to do that if you actually have deliverables.
Yeah. And there's certainly, they always say, one of our biggest principles is fail fast, which is great when you do iterative design and stuff like that, which is necessary in entertainment, like games or themed entertainment or any of like this. Yeah.
I'll add something to that. It really depends, first of all, what discipline you're doing. Kelly, what's so funny over there?
I'm so sorry. Nothing. I promise. It's in the chat.
Oh, okay. Well,
Kathy, I can't stop laughing. I'm so sorry, y'all. I love you. Please go ahead, Michael.
Okay, yeah, we'll sit idly by while you have your inside joke. That's no problem.
No, it's in the chat.
So, oh, I see. Oh, there's been a lot of chat. I haven't been scrolling down. What I was going to say was, there's a piece of advice that I got once from a guy at Disney whose name was Dave Durham, and he just retired recently, but brilliant guy. He was there for decades, and this was a conversation I had with him when I was an intern there, which would have been in the summer of, I think, 2007. And, I asked him that same question, and I'm sure a lot of people ask him that question, and how to break in and whatnot. And the answer that he gave me at the time was something that really stuck with me. He said, and his answer was specifically for Disney, not necessarily for the whole industry, but when it comes to Imagineering specifically, he said, really, there's one of two ways. You need to, basically the way that Disney kind of budgets and staffs talent is, they're looking for the best people at specific skills, and they have like these different buckets. That was the word that he used, these buckets for different skills. Like they have budget and a bucket for illustrators and for writers and for show set people. And in order to get one of those jobs, you need to be one of the best. You just need to work really hard at that skill so that you're one of the best at those things. And, that it just takes a lot of hard work. Or that's one way. And I'll just say, I'm not in any of those buckets. I'm more of a generalist. Or the second way is to realize that there is a bucket that they had not thought of. And I think that's more the route that we're taking is, hey, there's a discipline there. I think now they've caught up to a large extent, and they're using a lot of these tools, and the tools that they're creating though are more internal proprietary tools. But we're trying to make the tool that's for everybody, for all the vendors, for all the contractors, for all of the different participants in a project. And, we got hooked on VR simulation and previs and this pipeline stuff pretty early, maybe before people realized that it was going to be a bucket. So, that's just us. And I would encourage people to think that way if they're in school right now, or if they're learning something new. Yeah. So what is the bucket that they haven't thought of? That's the question you need to be asking yourself, because
and send it to me in an email with an outline and pitch,
yes.
And I'll let you know. I'll definitely promise.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be tech, by the way. Just some, if you're big into immersive theater and trying out all these activations, or you just have a unique perspective. Yes, that's great advice. Create the job you want, not the job that exists. That's very, very good advice. And you just start, if you have the means, start doing the job before it exists. Like use the bar has never been lower to create experiences that other people can check out because of these digital tools. Building things is really expensive, but if you construct digital experiences, you can start to build a portfolio and learn a lot of things and get feedback and start to get really, really good at something, and share it. It's never been easier to share it and to sort of get your name out there. Even, just to give a thumb drive to somebody. Walk up to me at the TEA event with a thumb drive and say, hey, check this out. I made this. I'm definitely going to check it out. And you don't have to bring me to a physical location to see it. So I personally think, and also just experiential stuff. Now it's bleeding out of theme parks and into retail and everything. So there have never been.
Still there, Libby? I'm still here. Well, I mean, if he's, I can continue on and say something about also talking about each of the two different paths, like creating your own bucket, falling into a bucket, stuff like that. Remember that the tough thing about being the best is in a certain bucket or whatever is that no one's really the best at any one thing. There's people that are well known and stuff like that that keep getting gone to. But even our favorite go-to, Joe Rohde, he has weaknesses and stuff like that he's not the best at. And he's they're hard to find, I'm sure. But it's just like, being the best in your area doesn't necessarily mean beating out everyone else. It means finding your spot within that area and leveraging each other to really help the entire area progress. That's more important than just being the best of the best.
I think, and I know that I'm not.
Unless you're negotiating salary, then you're the best.
Then you're the best. I know based on my own personal experience, and not just with Joe, but because I've never worked for him. But I would love to. But
he's watching.
With other,
we know
he's watching. I'm kidding, but Chuck Fawcett's watching, and that's a big deal. If love you, Chuck. He's our president of the TEA. Love that guy. I know, he's so great. But the leaders that I feel are so good aren't good because they know a bunch of stuff, but they know how to allow their people to do their best work and to stay out of the way. They know when to interject and drop the little knowledge seeds, and when to get out of there and let things grow and explode.
Yeah, and this is actually a great time and talk about a little bit of what we each do actually at the place. So it's myself, as CTO. Right now we're small, so I'm doing a lot of the programming and all the back end stuff that needs to get done. And lots of hats. And but that doesn't stop Libby from coding. He's still working on it. He's just not the primary on it and stuff like that all the time. But he has been for a lot of COVID, just grinding away at that stuff. And now that we're working together even more now, he gets to have that sort of opportunity to do more of his role, while I get to take on all the the buildy stuff and the let's figure out how to make this one thing work, or all that stuff that needs to get the program going. Whereas he gets to Libby, take away.
Oh, that was a segue.
It's reversed, I think.
Yeah, look, no, when you're a startup, you have to you have to do 5 jobs at once, and that was the hardest thing for me to realize, is that I wasn't going to be able to do as much of the coding as I thought. Because you need to market the product and sell the product, and man, there's so much paperwork that comes with running a company. It's just unbelievable. But that's where Evan is the perfect partner for me, because he beyond just coding, he has an understanding of architecture. Of software architecture. Not real architecture, but
oh God.
just to know how a project should be structured, and I can really give Evan a big assignment, and he has to lead a team of junior engineers, and I can really trust that he can do that and get the job done. And man, it's really hard to find that. So And I'll just add that part of being a small company, yeah. So we are in the process of transitioning right now from being a services company to a software company. Right now, we engage clients and offer services, and our software is a tool that we use as part of our services. We will give you our software and interact with you. What we're in the process of doing is raising money to really productize what we have into a self-contained, usable piece of software that people can just download and use, and we don't even have to be involved. You've just bought a license to our software, and you're just using it with your project team. We're not there yet, but that's literally our current assignment. That's what we're working on. And kind of the big idea, the end goal really is, we just see this huge opportunity where, if you think about, like not just theme parks, but sports stadiums and music venues and auditoriums, there is no singular operating system for venues. Like, there's no Mac OS or Windows that is for venues. And why can't that be us? Why not? Everything's changing. Devices are getting smarter. Show control is getting smarter. Internet of Things and 5G means that these devices are going to communicate with each other a little bit differently than they do now with some of these legacy protocols. And there's a real opportunity there for there to be sort of one thing that you design, you publish, and then you run it. And the other advantage is that if you design it in a digital way, like our software, our show control playback software can play back a sequence simultaneously in the digital world and the physical world. It's capable of sending commands to both at the same time. So, as we enter this next age of the metaverse, I think we're very well prepared, where people are going to want to interact with the digital twin when they're at the physical space, or if they're not able to go to the physical space, they're going to want to interact with the digital version. And to have that back end connectivity between the two, I think, is really powerful. So, yeah.
Couple of things. One, Chuck Fawcett, love him. He says,
Love you, Chuck.
Michael had a vision for the previs and the metaverse way before it was cool. Gives you some awesome kudos, humble and brilliant at the same time. Thanks for sharing today.
Hey, Chuck led the way. He started a company and sold it.
Based on being told no. He started a company based on being told no. And that just inspiring.
It's a lot easier to pave a new path when you can see other people who've done it before. And Chuck is definitely one of those people.
Yeah.
We've also certainly seen the results of answering, no, I'm not going to move, turning into a company, correct?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Looking forward to the next 2 or 3 years. Some exciting
so
things.
Many companies, so many individuals, so many ideas have been started by, I'm not going to move to Florida. So many. And there's going to be another wave of that coming, I'm sure.
Thanks for coming by, Chuck.
Love him. We had another question though.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
Eric. Oh, hey Eric. Any advice for a fellow generalist in a world that seems to value deep knowledge in one specific area more? I'm early in my career and still looking for my thing. Eric, you're giving real-time advice.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, it was a really boring decision when I, chose sort of my skill set. I was like, what's safe? Programming seems safe. I love computers and I want to get into games. So that was like that was where I started pursuing knowledge, because it was boring, to be honest, when it first started out, and I didn't know things about I didn't know the knowledge of game design was really even a thing when I first started. But boy, as a bit of, a generalist myself, I can do within my own realm. Like, I know a little bit of Blender and Maya and stuff like that, a little bit of sound, a little bit of art, this, that, and the other thing, all sort of around my, and then game design, of course, is one of my cores, and the thing I use to, and game design and theme park design are my key. I need to stop shaking the table. Looks like an earthquake. Are my key core components. And around that was programming, which is what is the tools and skills I use to leverage what I want to do. So I would say, if you're a generalist, I know the love of grabbing a little bit of this and that and this and that and trying a bunch of things, and keep doing that, but make sure that every time you're doing something, you're trying to learn a bit more of something in that area, and feel if you really like it and you could do a lot more with it, then figure out how to apply that to all of the areas that interest you. Maybe it might be in a new way or something like that. And all of this kind of comes with a grain of salt of like, well, pursue an area where you can get paid and make a living too.
That's a big part of it.
It's so tough to find something that's your kick that also matches other people, and that's just about finding the skills you like, finding the skills you're willing to do. I like puzzles and all those kinds of problem solving things, but programming really isn't my favorite. Sometimes when I get a really tough thing done, I'm like, but most of the time it's just a means to an end, because I love the idea of being able to try out different mechanics and designs very quickly. I don't want to have to hire a programmer or ask a programmer to do it for me. So I've leveraged the tool and the skill, despite wanting to be broad in everything. I still focused on getting at least a very solid skill that a lot of other people could, that I could utilize, but also could be utilized for other people. Maybe programming's a great one. Programming's not for everyone. But that doesn't mean you can't be a great concept artist or musician or any of those sort of things, or just where you find your biggest interest yourself is where you should be trying to apply it into all the other facets of what this community interests you.
And I'll just add to that, you can find roles. Kathy just mentioned in the chat, she started as a coordinator. I started as a PA. There are roles out there, where you just do, by the nature of the role, you get exposed to many different disciplines, and you kind of see what everyone does, and that helps you kind of find your place. One other thing I'll add really quickly, I know we're over time, but to answer the question about being a generalist, I think one of the best things you can do if you consider yourself a generalist is to work at the smaller companies. Universal, Disney, they're great. Obviously, their product is great. Their culture, their legacy, their IP, it's top notch. But remember that bucket thing I was talking about. Companies like Universal and Disney, they have buckets, and if you start to crawl out of your bucket and look into another bucket, protected. But both of those companies have the benefit of a multi-billion-dollar media conglomerate as their safety net. These smaller companies don't, and they just can't have the same processes and politics. And so like my first job out of college, like I said, was as a PA at Thinkwell. And, you know, at these smaller companies, you can just like, they want people who can step up and say, oh, I can do that. You don't have to hire somebody else to do that. I can do that. Or just give me a shot at that. And they start to see you as like a Swiss Army knife that has tremendous value. The last time the industry collapsed around 2008, I had just gotten out of college. I think had a major project, and unfortunately they had to lay off like a lot of people. It was a real bummer of a time. And I was one of the few people that they kept around because, first of all, and most importantly, I was their lowest paid employee. But secondly, it was because I could just do a bunch of stuff. And, you know, that was a time when the company the whole industry was kind of desperate and everyone was operating in a very lean way. And so I was able to just, you know, at a young age, sit in some really high level meetings about strategy and what projects do we pursue and how do we respond to these design competitions and proposals and all these things. And just sitting in the room and listening to that stuff was really helpful to understand the actual business of the industry, which is really important. It's not just about designing awesome ideas. There is a real business to it. And that experience of stepping up and doing Photoshop and some show writing and keynote presentation design, all that. This was way before I learned how to code or anything like that. That, I think, really helped me out being sort of a jack of all trades, master of none type. So I would seek out, when you're younger and just getting started, I would seek out opportunities at some of the smaller companies.
Before I forget, the last part of that saying, jack of all trades and master of none, says, but better than being a master of one. I need to throw that out there. because it is important for those generalists out there, it's important for you to stay nimble. Do some deep dives into stuff, but if you are going to work at a smaller vendor company or, you know, for these smaller companies, I think it's important. I feel like I'm reiterating what you just said, so I'm going to shut up. But yeah.
No, I think I get what you're saying. It's important to be still exploring what the new softwares are, what the new technologies are. I know at previous companies that I've been to, the CTO, and, you know, I've carried this into it as well, as basically a portion of my job is looking at technologies that might help us or might push us or something like that. So, you know, a new piece of hardware that allows better control of lighting or something like that, or any of those things. Or, you know, I'm constantly trying to keep our, you know, our Unity up to date, or, you know, whatever project we're, whatever applications we're using, making sure we're using the, you know, finding the appropriate plugins that really manage to help things out. You know, and Libby does a ton of this too, is like, you know, I think you found and learned sort of like a lip syncing plugin just so that we could get that captain to talk and basically say any lines that the actor wanted to, because we didn't have an animator. So, you know, we did what we could, found some tech that covered us, and that was sort of a lucky thing. But constantly be exploring those new things, because you'll find once you're in the industry, you'll go to a company, if you go to a bigger company or anything like that, they'll be working on tech that's 10 years old, stuff like that all the time, maybe older, for the most part. I mean, they're starting to get there, but, you know, truth be told, some of those bigger companies might have done similar things to what we're doing right now, and it's just fallen apart or wasn't up upkept, and stuff like that. And now it's just, vaporware sort of thing for them. So you might end up at a place where they go, oh yeah, we use this, learn it. But that doesn't mean it's the only be all end all. And you should be pursuing more just in yourself than that. And even if it's just cursory exploring, like, oh, I don't know, CES is boring, but like, what's new on CES, or this, technology thing, or maybe health is your kick. You check out the latest health things for rehabilitation or any of those, or whatever you're into. So yeah, just keep exploring. Make sure you're learning a little bit about everything and really getting in there.
And technology is, like it or not, it's an integral part of our industry. And if you think that you're an idea person, ideas just don't happen in a vacuum. You need to be aware of what's out there. So if you're really researching constantly and just keeping up to date on the new stuff that's coming, then you can start to see how they'll sort of cross-pollinate each other, and that's where the really rich new ideas come from.
And I always go insane with the idea guy concept, because I can come up with ideas. I'm an idea guy, but I can also back it up with programming. I can make you a prototype. I can test it. So why is your position as idea guy any better than mine as being a guy with ideas with programming? Yeah, one of us is going to end up getting a job because we sell ourselves not as an idea guy. That's just keep that in mind. There's no real idea.
Show the idea. Also because you can show what the idea is. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and absolutely, not just because just programming. Libby, was a writer originally, so that he used that a lot. And then you got into visualizing stuff with what was it used? Keynote or something like that for a while.
It's true. My first ride simulation that I ever did was a little vehicle timing study where I used Keynote to animate the vehicle around a little track before I coded anything. Yeah, it was all Keynote, but it worked.
Yeah, and he used those knowledges for it.
I think we have time for maybe like one more question.
Yes. Looks like we have a question coming in. Do you see the future of themed entertainment being more digital experiences, or is physical experiences still at the core of the future with digital included? Oh, that's a big question.
That is a big
It's a
question.
Pandora's box.
I don't know. It's like saying like, oh, is radio still around? Kind of thing. Like, yeah, movies and video games and theme park rides have all replaced some of these older things. Replaced, but they're still around until someone says, I guess movie theaters are having a hard time, but that was due to outside influence. That just happens. But my thought is that it's just another thing on top. I think we'll see a lot more digital stuff going forward because of its ability to connect. Perhaps even, once you leave the park, connecting with what you've done there, stuff like that. That's where I can see a lot more, where it won't be the core experience, but it'll be something to take with you. I don't know. What do you think, Libby?
I think that the dividing line isn't really physical versus digital. It's more in-home versus out-of-home. And when you're in-home, obviously it's going to be digital. You're going to be in 3D environments, more VR, more full immersion in a digital space because you're in your home. But if the moment you're going to a physical destination, then the technology is always still going to be there, but it's going to take a back seat and it's going to support that physical experience. So it'll probably be more AR in person. And, you know, I talk to a lot of people who say, like, I can't picture people wearing an AR headset all day while they walk around the theme park. And to that, I'll say, there was a time not too long ago, maybe 10 years ago, iPhones were brand new, and I was at Disney at the time, and we were having all these discussions of like, well, we can't design an experience that involves the iPhone because not everyone has an iPhone, and it'll exclude like a big section of our guests. But guess what? Now everyone has an iPhone, and it's not a conversation anymore. And that's just the way that technology works. And so, yeah, tomorrow you're not going to see a bunch of people wearing AR headsets in the park, but 10 years from now you are. And, you know, this is an industry of long gestating projects and, you know, a lot of thinking deep into the future and planning for deep into the future, the 10-year plan, the 15-year plan. So, you know, I think technology is going to make its way into every aspect of this industry. And, you know, tech is getting better every day. People who tried VR a couple of years ago, oh, it's so antisocial. No. That's still in their minds, but they haven't tried it today. Like, things are changing so quickly, and you know, interacting in VR chat now, or you know, there's this great mini golf game that just came out that is making a lot of waves, because guess what? People can stand in the same place and feel like they're having a social experience in the same room playing mini golf, and they forget that they're in VR. It's just they're just playing mini golf and having a good time socially. That happens at home. So yeah, that was kind of a long answer, but that's how I see it.
So as we're wrapping up, I know that we've been like asking in the private chat each other stuff, but what is one final piece of advice that you might have for our viewers and like me? Because I'm our viewer too.
Mine would be just the one thing that you can control. You know, you can't control the luck of the economy or, you know, hiring, you know, job opportunities, things like that. The one thing that you can control is just making stuff. So just keep making stuff. I know that sounds trite, but each time you do it, you get better at it. You get better at taking criticism about it, and you do develop a portfolio over time. So yeah, keep making stuff and sharing stuff online. Just share it publicly, and you'll get good at it. That's just what happens. And then the jobs will come.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. What they both said, what Dead Skull and Libby said, are kind of just almost the same thing I would say as well, is that, like, you know, the most I can still remember, like, the most motivated and powerful thing I did was when it was my senior year, I think, in undergrad, and I learned a bunch of programming and shell scripting and shaders and compilers and all this stuff that was clogging up my brain, and I didn't like it. I didn't want to work in it. And then I sat down and was like, you know what? I'm just, you know, rather than playing a game or watching something, I'm just going to make something in Unity. And and then just, you know, started working on that in my free time rather than other things. And that was just like huge, because suddenly I was trying to figure out the next thing to do in it and pushing my learning, because I was suddenly basically learning what I wanted to learn. So yeah. And the last thing that I'll just sort of tie on to that, since it's just kind of repeating what Libby said, was find targets for your work. Make sure you're striving for a target, and your target can change, but it's so important to know, think of when you're learning to draw a line with sort of maybe as an artist, you're supposed to look at your start point and look at your end point. And that's how you're sort of supposed to practice learning to get from one to the other and making it natural. And that's having a target. Like, my very first target was I was going to make a very basic Ikaruga clone. That was fine. Ikaruga, it's a bullet hell shooter, flipping. It's a big ask, but it's small, and it was the first thing where it has a moving thing and shooting, and that was my first target. And then from there you can move your target, but make sure you have something that in mind that you're pushing forward to, and you can always change that, but it really will help your progress and your study if you go, I want to make this thing or do this thing, and you go for that rather than just saying, I want to learn Unity. Because I can't tell you how many times I picked up a book saying, I'm going to learn Unity, and it just did nothing for me because it was just a book, and the goal was to read it. Boring. Everyone's different, of course, but I would say even if you're better at just reading a book, I mean, at some point you should be thinking of what your target is.
Well, that was excellent advice to close on. I mean, just the whole entire evolution of Worldbuildr and what you guys have achieved is absolutely amazing. And you have offered some really awesome advice for those of us transitioning into the industry or starting off in the industry. And we really thank you guys for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having us. This was an honor.
Yeah.
Want to give a quick shout out to Patrick Kling for starting this channel and for TETV in the first place. Sign up for our mailing list. Follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, what have you. And yeah, Chaz, get back to work already. What's going on?
This is my procrastination. I should be doing work right now or here instead.
But no, thanks for having us.
You lovely people. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us. And thanks, everyone. I don't think I gave a shout out to everybody, but I see some familiar names in the chat. Thanks for tuning in, and come up and say hi at a in-person event. Don't hesitate to introduce yourself and say hello, please.
10 out of 10, recommend it. It's a great time.
Yeah.
Same. Recommend it for certain. Libby's fantastic. Always great to see at every event I go to. So
is there an outro video, or do we just end anticlimactically?
Oh, we wave. We say hi. We say bye to everyone else. Come on, wave.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.